Hi, everyone. This is Jack Allwild with another money episode. Today we have special guest Kai Dickens from Dr. Budgets. Kai, welcome to the show.
Hey Jack, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here, man.
So before we get into the cool and exciting world of budgeting, I like to ask each guest, what was your relationship with money growing up?
That's a funny question. I actually had two very different money stories. I had a grandmother who would literally just pull money from anywhere, like it was always hidden in the house. Her and one of her best friends created a money tree for me. And that money tree, literally, as long as I didn't take the last dollar, it would automatically replenish itself. And then I had the side of like, hey, we kind of have to scrimp, like we can't buy this, we can't buy that, right? Kind of with my parents. And times were a little bit hard sometimes. So like I'd be at parents' house, times would be like a little hard, and I'd be at my grandma's house, and times would be like, well, just go grab money from my drawer or take it off of your tree. So I think what that kind of taught me is that I needed to create my own way of running money. Cause like when you have two of those things battling, and I became pretty much a money hoarder as a child. And I used to hide my money and iron it and
Oh,
legitimately like put it in a planner
okay.
because I didn't want to spend it. So it doesn't surprise me that I ended up in finances.
Gotcha. So what led you to the world of helping other people budget?
I got lucky and this opportunity actually fell in my lap. I went through a coach training program, so I wanted to be a life coach after I quit working in corporate America. And I realized very quickly that life coaching is a very hard sell, like just by itself. So I was working with one of my clients, and he was running a company. He was running this company, actually, Dr. Budgets, and he kept begging me to come and be a coach for him, and I kept saying no, and I kept saying no. And he asked me to come help with the culture. And I was like, all right, that's what I love. Like, I can definitely help you out with that. But in order to do that, I need to see what your clients are going through and what you're teaching, your coaches to teach them. Well, he gave me three clients and I fell in love with the process and actually ended up being the coach that he hired. I coached with him for about 4 or 5 years, and then he offered me my book of business. And then I counter offered and told him I wanted to buy the business itself. And we worked it out, and I've now owned it for almost 2.5 years.
Wow, awesome. So this is kind of a unique story because you got to be a client and now you're on the other side. So
I
what
was
what
a
did you
client, a coach, and now the owner. Yeah.
so as a client, what did you it's kind of yeah, so why don't you walk us through some of the things you learned at while being a client?
One of the first things is like I had just gotten ready to start a couple of businesses. And with me starting the business, he literally sat me down. He's like, we got to separate the finances before any of the money even starts coming in. So I got very lucky on that aspect, right? Like I wasn't commingling at the very beginning with like stuff coming in. I had a separate business account set up, all of that good stuff. And I realized that having those detailed numbers was able to give me what I needed in order to, like, if I needed to, or I wanted to pay for another coach, or if I wanted to go travel somewhere for the business, I had a very clear picture of what was going on for me there, as well as on the financial side, because it was really easy to create what I needed on the financial side and plug it into the business so that I made sure that I was getting paid. So the entire time I've been an entrepreneur, I've been able to pay myself, right? And I know that sometimes things that some business owners run into, like they've been running a business for 3 4 years and they're still not paying themselves. That's what I find with a lot of my clients, right? So that was, I mean, I think those are two of the key pieces: being able to pay myself, knowing my numbers, and not commingling.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's transition to the coaching and owner side. So what is the framework that you use when you're helping people construct a budget?
So it's a little bit different between individuals and the businesses. On the individuals, what we're really doing is it's broken into two different parts. We create a spending plan for you. So essentially, we're looking at the last quarter of your finances, how you spent things in about 60, almost 70 different categories, depending on the person. We go through, it takes about 4 hours, like over the course of two meetings to kind of get like all the information. But we go through literally line by line, category by category, and we're looking, categorizing them, and I take them and I create an average of what that person is spending. And I use a zero-based budget. So, every dollar has a job within your budget, whether it's going to savings, whether it's going to paying off debt, or whether it's, for your actual expenses. Once we get those numbers, like the averages, then we sit down, and if they're $2,000 over, let's say, we've got to make sure that we're making up that $2,000 by shaving some of those expenses. I let them do it, but I'm there to guide them. Like if somebody's trying to go from spending $1,200 a month in food and dining out down, oh, I can do it under $200. We're not setting anybody up for success, right? Like, yes, right now you think you can, but in reality, when we're not in front of each other, it's not going to happen. So I'm just making sure that they're creating realistic goals for themselves. And then the second part is the actual money coaching. So the budget that we create every month, we look back and we see how it went. What was your budget? What did you actually spend? And we pick 2 to 3 different categories in order for them to focus on that month. That way it takes out the overwhelm. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
not like, oh my, I need to change everything. No, it's okay. It's never going to be 100% every single month. I'm not expecting perfection, just progress. And then we just simply coach through that piece. On the business side, I do that the personal side for the business owners as well, but it's getting real clarity around what's coming in the business, how they're actually using the funds. Are they setting things aside for taxes? Are they actually setting money aside so that they have like the kind of the rainy day fund on the business side so that say you do want to hire a coach or something, like you can pull from that instead of hitting the cash flow of the month. A lot of business owners are kind of playing in the vanity metrics. Oh, I run $1 million business. Okay, but how much did you make off of that business? I've had clients that like I run $1 million business and they spent $950,000. Well, you had $50,000. Like what happened to the other 950? They don't know. So it's really just about the clarity so that they can actually take home money.
Gotcha. In terms of like you're talking about tracking like that actual to expected amounts, are there any resources that you guys use to track? Is it just simply using an Excel spreadsheet? What are you guys using to track?
So I have my own proprietary stuff. So well, we used to use Mint
Okay.
for all of the personal stuff. I mean, we've been running the business off of that. I will be pivoting. I'm actually going to be picking the new program within the next week or so. I've been testing out a couple of them, but on the business side, kind of depends on how big the business is. Most of my businesses that are like around like under $200,000, we're kind of just using the Mint because most of them don't want to get into the weeds of QuickBooks. But other than that, the rest of my clients are on some form of QuickBooks so that we can actually, use the P&L to kind of make sure that the numbers make sense and line up with the budget. I put it in a very readable way for them as opposed to them having to like look at the P&L and be like, huh, what does this say? It's a better visual.
Gotcha. Okay. So from working with your clients, what have you found to be helpful in fostering healthy spending and saving habits?
Having the conversation, like the honest conversation is one, and really digging into their mindset, right? So if I have a client that's like beating themselves up on a call, like that's not my job. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm not here to be like, oh my gosh, you didn't do this. I'm here to find out what's holding you back and like why are you continuing to do this even though we're setting stuff. So we start just having conversations and breaking down the layers. That's where my coaching expertise comes in because I've been taught how to help people with that. And then we can kind of reframe things and we just keep working. The cool part about I think what I do is that it's set up as a structure, right? But it's a skeleton, right? Every single person that comes through is not going to run the same way 100%. And I can adapt with the person and I'm always willing to try. This didn't work. Okay, cool. This month, let's try this until something actually clicks. And at that point, they're able to move forward. Yeah. Does that answer kind of what
Yeah,
you're
yeah. I
asking?
think I'm sure a lot of people have been dealing with like the inflation these last couple of years. The number one expense for most people is their housing. Is housing. What have you seen with your clients, and how have they reconfigured their budgets with increasing in these types of expenses? Like what ways or tricks maybe have you seen that have been helpful?
Yeah, so I think some of the big huge things have been gas. It's been, the apartments going up, especially when you live in California. Some of our apartments have gone up about $800 over the course of 2 years. And it's also been groceries. So it's just really having very intentional conversations with them about where they're buying things. Like you might have $1,500 for a budget of, 4 people, but if you're going to the more expensive like Whole Foods, right? To like grab all of your groceries or Vons when you could be buying a couple of things at Food for Less, or you could be buying a couple of things at like Ralph's, right? Like, or going to get bulk at Costco. It's really about getting very granular on where you're spending the money to see where you can save, like not asking them to 100% back off and like, you know, buying groceries, but like just being a little bit more frugal. and very intentional about what they're doing. As far as gas, it's like, hey, if you're just grabbing gas everywhere, either grab the Gas Buddy app and see what's going to be the lowest for you,
Uh,
or my go-to is Costco. Costco is almost always, at least in California, where gas is almost $6 a gallon, right? Like gas is almost always 30 cents cheaper at Costco than it is on the street. So I call it street tail and Costco, right?
okay.
It's just being a little bit more intentional, having to put a little bit more effort into that might save you $300-400 a month, right? It might not be the huge full thousand, but like at least at the end of the day, you're still, you're being really good with your money and you're making better decisions.
I think most people view a budget as very like restrictive. How do we balance like the here and now versus the long term? And yeah, those types of vacations that we really want to take now versus, saving for our future selves. How do we balance the here and now versus the future?
Yeah, I deal with that a lot, changing the budget from being a bad word into a good word, which is one of the reasons why we call it a spending plan. It gives us the opportunity to spend up to a certain amount. So if you put it in like the like in fitness, right? If you're on a diet, most of the time when we think about diet, we think about what? Brown rice, chicken, and broccoli, right? Like for every single meal. That's if you're just doing a diet versus if you're eating off of macros, right? Like the fats, the carbs, and the protein, right? Like you can have X amount and like you can make it work. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to eat. You still have to be smart, but you can have a little pizza. It's the same thing with the budget, right? If you're looking at it with the macro, hey, I can spend in shopping. I don't have to restrict myself, but I have a limit of what I can spend. I need to be very intentional about that. And to address like your question about like vacations and whatnot, like we put in the irregular expenses, we budget those things in. Holidays, well, holiday trips, like holiday gifts, car registration, like annual subscriptions, and that money starts going to a different account. It's like a savings account for yourself. I kind of call it your own FSA account. So when you
Okay.
want to go on that trip, if you have $3,000 for Hawaii, you use that $3,000 to go to Hawaii versus throwing it on a credit card, and it's a completely different way to travel. Like that's how I travel. I literally went on a trip to Hawaii once. My budget was $5,000. I didn't end up spending the full 5,000, but when we got there, I realized that I wanted a GoPro and I
Okay.
got to buy the GoPro with no guilt, right? Because it was in the money for my vacation fund versus having to like battle with myself. Oh, should I spend the $400? I just knew that was $400 that I couldn't spend on something else.
Mhm. I can sense you spend a lot of time with the psychology around money, savings, budgeting. Are there any resources that you really like out there for people? Maybe something that Dr. Budgets has on their website or specific books that really help us get around the psychology?
I don't know if you guys remember Jen Sincero. There's the book. She's like, it's called "You Are Badass at Making Money."
Okay.
Uh, it's one of the books that I love. It's a very, very, very simple read, but at the end of the day, like it's so simple that it's so straightforward that you're like, oh, I get it. Like, why didn't I? Why didn't I get it? And then you've got Nefe, Nefe.com. They have like a whole bunch of stats and all that good stuff that you can like literally like find anything that you want about like inflation, like just different things that are going on right now, like in the world. I think that they're an amazing organization. And then like, yeah, we have something on the website. It's called it's 10 ways to save $10,000. It's a little ebook. So if you're trying to save some money, you've got that piece coming through. And then our Doctor Budget's Instagram, we're starting to post, quite a few videos that just kind of break down some of the mindsets around these things and do this, not that, do
Uh-huh.
this, do that, not this kind of a thing. So
Awesome. Well, Kai, as we're winding down, I like to ask every guest, what is the best and worst personal finance advice you've either heard or received?
the worst, let's go ahead and start with that, is on the business side. Oh, you got to just go ahead and spend it so you're not paying taxes on it. Right.
Okay.
It's just kind of like spending 80 cents to save, spending 80 cents to try to save 20, right? Like it's better to go ahead and make sure that you are saving for the taxes. Yes, there's ways to minimize it, but you don't have to spend it all in order to, like, it doesn't make sense to go out and buy a G-Wagon that costs you 100 and some $1,000s in order to save $20,000 because now you have a payment of a hundred and some thousand dollars, right? I'm sure there's other ways that you can find to invest that. So that would be some of the worst. And some of the best is just making sure that you keep your finances top of mind all the time. And just know, like, and it's not to beat yourself up, but like the awareness is what's going to give you the ability to do what you want in life.
Awesome. Well, Kai, it's been a pleasure having you on. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can go learn more about you and Dr. Budgets or get in contact with you?
Awesome. If you want to get in touch with me, you can go ahead and go to it's drbudgets.com. That'll take you to the website. It kind of walks you through our 5-step process, all that amazingness. And then you can go ahead and also find us on Instagram. I love DMs. I love the little hearts. Hit that little heart for me. We don't have a YouTube channel up yet, but we will be getting ready to start something called the Profit CFO.
Awesome. And are you Dr. Budgets on Instagram?
I am, yeah,
Dr.
Dr.
Budgets
Budget.
on. Okay, awesome. Well, Kai, thanks so much for coming on. I think the listeners got a lot of value out of this.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.